Tony Lamberti, re-recording mixer and sound designer for Spider-Man No Way Home. Tony, this is your third Spider-Man film with John Watts. How did you talk about your approach to this one coming in for the presumably final chapter of this, at least the final of these three Peter Parker films?
Exactly. Well, we knew going into this one that it was a progression from the very first movie, Homecoming, through Far From Home, and then going to this one, No Way Home. And we knew that there were going to be some multiversal elements that were going to come to the fore, and that we were going to have some visitors. And we didn't know exactly what visitors those were going to be, but we knew that whatever it was going to be, we were going to have to take it and really take it to the highest level in order to get it to the finale that John wanted.
Right. So you mentioned that, like, we don't have to spoil it, though. I mean, it's made $1 billion. I'm sure a lot of people watching this already know a lot of things, and obviously the trailers have a lot of the Spider-Man villains. So going on that, you have elements of the Sam Raimi films, and obviously the Mark Webb Spider-Man films, and then the John films as well. How did that approach your sound? Like, obviously, like, people are so familiar with, like, let's say, like, the Green Goblin's, like, bombs, like the way they plink, and like the Dr. Octopus's tentacles, and even Electro's, like, electricity. I mean, how did that, like, I guess, how did that affect, or like, how did you guys figure out, like, how to make that sound to make it so it was familiar, obviously, to the audiences who watch those films over 20 years, but maybe slightly different and or ajar because it's in your own universe?
Well, we had gone back through the previous movies and listened to that material and familiarized ourselves with that material, and then realized that some of that stuff was made 20 years ago, and so we as using it as a thread and as a kind of a kernel of an idea, we were able to refashion it and redesign from scratch, using today's technology and techniques that we've developed over time in order to make a new version, a new 2021 version of those sounds for the characters of Doc Ock's tentacles, like you said, Green Goblin, the glider, that kind of stuff. So it was a great archaeological expedition to go back and revisit those things, but then take that and take it to the next level.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. One of the things I was so impressed with the film, I think, is that obviously there's a lot of the action scenes. There's a lot of spectacle, a lot of big scenes, and I feel like, especially towards the end, when you have multiple villains and multiple heroes, let's say, to avoid spoilers, I feel like it's very clear of who's doing what. And obviously, I guess, can you talk a little about, like, making sure, like, I don't know, like the webs are sounding a specific, like, how did you guys delineate between, like, all of the different heroes, let's say?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. Each one of the Spideys over the years has had different web shooter sounds. So we went through and culled those out, because those were very specific, and those were the types of things where John Watt, the director, was like, I just got to have it exactly like it was. And so that, in conjunction with the dialogue, because they're all in masks, we had to make sure you understood which one was speaking at which time, which Kevin O'Connell did a great job making sure all the dialogue was placed in such a way that it was like you knew which character you were with at any given time, whether you're with Tobey, whether you're with Andrew, whether you're with Tom Holland. So that's how we kind of helped keep it all straight when all the crazy action started happening for the big finale.
Yeah. How about you mentioned, like, the multiverse aspect of it. How do you, like, I guess, where did you start, or how do you think about, like, creating multiverse? Obviously, at the end, like, it kind of is ripping open. So you see, like, it's kind of coming in, like, you have a bunch of different, maybe people from different universes coming in, perhaps. And I guess, how did you guys think of how that kind of thing would sound? Like, obviously, like we were saying, like, the webs and all those things are stuff that people maybe are familiar with and are kind of, like, can grasp onto. But how do you create something like that, or maybe it's, like, new to the audience that they have to kind of understand what it is, but also, like, want to make it not too obtuse, I guess, or for lack of a better word. Yeah.
Well, the way we approached it was, that the picture editors, Jeff Ford and Lee Folsom Boyd, they were really instrumental in terms of kind of giving us the conceptual idea of what ultimately we were going to see. Visual effects wise, because that was the whole third act was something that came in very, very late, later than any other Spider-Man that we've been associated with. And so they kind of give us conceptual ideas, like we think the sky is going to be tearing, we're going to and this, they're going to allow these other creatures and or characters to potentially come through while Doctor Strange is trying to hold them back. And so we started with, different elements in terms of trying to make tearing sounds. Dry ice cracking is really great. There's all just, rocks ripping and all that kind of stuff. And then over time, once we started seeing the visuals develop, we, kind of crafted something that was custom to what we were actually seeing in terms of its duration and length and where it was playing in the space and all that kind of stuff. So it was a challenge, but it was, and it happened so late in the process that, we were flying by the seat of our pants, but it turned out great. And then everybody seems to really respond to it.
Yeah, it's very cool, and it works. It sounds great, honestly. You mentioned, like, obviously the third film and like kind of the trilogy of Spider-Man for Tom Holland and kind of the character's evolution. Obviously, the first film is much more like, I think, indebted to like high school films or like coming of age films, like a John Hughes vibe. And this film, and the films have grown up obviously with the character. How do you play into that with sound? Like, does the sound, like, is there a way to make it sound more mature, I guess, for, what I mean? Like, you watch it growing up.
In terms of the acting, obviously Tom Holland and Zendaya, they give amazing performances in terms of the emotion. Like this particular Spider-Man had way more emotion, way more emotional moments in it to be able to play off of than any other previous movies. They did an amazing job. So our job in that respect is to just let the actors do the acting and just kind of get out of their way and let them have it. But so it's, whether it's peeling back, letting music carry the day, and or there were moments where we took music out completely, like when Andrew Garfield goes after and rescues Zendaya as to give himself the moment that he never had in the movie where he lost Gwen Stacy. That we actually peeled all the music out and let all the sound effects drive that. So it was just finding, which moments we were going to drive with music, which with sound effects, what we were going to, let the dialogue carry the day, those kind of things, and just shape it around the emotional moments to let them come through.
Yeah, that is an incredible moment, and definitely is one of the more emotional in the film. I guess, was that like, what was the biggest challenge for you then? Was that like something like that, or is it like the end, like you were talking about? Like, what for you guys was like the hardest, sequence maybe to figure out?
Well, I think, that was definitely the hardest, because there's so many different elements at play, and the weaving in and out of the music. Michael Giacchino did an amazing score, as he does on all the Marvel movies. So it was just finding, ducking and weaving and working with Kevin O'Connell and just finding the way the shape was going to be. And again, we had Jeff Ford on the stage with us for a lot of it, and just worked our way through it. And it took a long time, but obviously the audiences are speaking for it, so they really, really love it. So
yeah. It's really great. Tony Lamberti, re-recording mixer and sound designer for Spider-Man No Way Home. Thank you so much, Tony. It's great chatting with you.
Thank you.